My name is John Davis. I'm currently the curator of special collections and performing arts at the University of Maryland.
Why would you say that fanzines are important?
Oh, I think they're really important for understanding, young people and understanding, various subcultures, and their firsthand documents of what was going on in the scene at that point. Whether it's a concert review or an interview with the band, and I just think they're especially interesting due to their scarcity. There's often very few copies left at all. I mean, most people when they make a zine, some people just make one copy, but many will just make 5 or 10 or 20, and they'll just hand it out to their friends, and like that's it. And we have some of those, going back to the 80s or even the late 70s, where these zines where somebody just ran off like a small batch of them, never thinking that anyone would care beyond like next month, let alone next century. And those are just incredible, portals back to directly to that time. And it's really like a map of the scene throughout the 45, almost 50 years of punk, to sort of see what matters to people, and what are they extolling, what are they upset about, what are all these kind of things. And it's just it's to me much more trustworthy than if you just are interviewing people now and being like, tell me about 1980. I'd much rather read the original stuff about it. We've been able to make materials that are important to me, and to a lot of other people, accessible here. It's like anyone can get it. It's not they're not going off to collectors where somebody pays a huge amount of money and then just keeps it and no one else can see it. Anyone can come see this stuff anytime we're open, and I am proud of that it's using the resources of this institution to help protect those stories and to make them accessible, and then to hopefully inspire creativity for new things to come out of this space. I feel like it's this sort of life cycle of punk, and even though this is an institution, a massive institution, and that feels maybe a bit antithetical to punk, and I was starting to try to collect our punk archives here. That was a pretty common question, was like, why would we want to work with a large institution like the University of Maryland, who didn't care about us at all for decades, didn't care about what we did, thought what we were doing was frivolous or not worthy of preservation or collection. And now all of a sudden, after we protected it for decades, now we're just going to give it to you. And I think that it was like, even when people were saying that, they were saying like, this isn't like personal to you, John, this is, to the university. But I think that there were a number of people who needed a little more convincing. Obviously there's an inherent distrust of institutions within punk, to question and challenge the institutions, even something like the University of Maryland. And so, we kind of had to show that it was like, these were not going to go behind glass and be untouchable and taken away from the community. This is a place of creativity and not a time capsule, and not about old dead stuff, but is about a place to hear stories and to connect with the stories of other creative people throughout the years, many of whom are long gone, but they were creative people in the performing arts, music, dance, theater, and within the context of punk, we want people to come here and look at the zines and not think like, damn, that was so cool back then. The idea is that you see it and then you're inspired to do your own thing, whether it's a new fanzine or to do a podcast or a book or an article. People come here and like they've done clothing designs from what they've seen in the zines here. They there have been people who've done comics who've come here and found the story that they wanted to illustrate in the archives here. It's just that's the point. It's a place for creation and for creativity and new things. It's about today. It's about tomorrow. It's not just about yesterday. A recurring theme for many of the people that I spoke to, myself included as a zine maker, was that at the time they didn't exactly feel like they felt like outsiders among the outsiders. So even though they were documenting this scene, which they were part of, and they would go to the shows and they would interview bands, and so many people would kind of say, like, I never really felt like at the heart of things. I always sort of felt on the outside observing. And that's a common, there's something, maybe that's the kind of person that's drawn to making a zine, maybe, has that kind of mindset. But, you know, I know that was certainly the case for me. I never felt like I was some sort of like, you know, wheeler dealer within the scene when I was making a zine. I felt like I was just some like random kid from the suburbs who was like in thrall of these cool older people making this amazing music, and I was allowed to, you know, be in the room, and you know, I was allowed to, I could go to the shows and take it in, but I never felt like it was totally about me. So a lot of other people who made fanzines have kind of expressed that same idea of like an outsider among the outsiders. But I also think another recurring theme is just taking the lessons they learned from doing a zine, whether it's about the value of your own opinion, or you know, and expressing that opinion, and that you have something to say, carries over into, you know, the lives that they continue to lead today. And again, whether that's through activism or through academia or, you know, music, or I mean, so many different ways that people have gone on to live their lives since making zines and being in punk, but it never leaves them, I would say.
It's an interesting aspect when you say that they feel like they were not in the scene.
Mm-hmm.
There's something in the term fanzine that to me feels kind of wrong. Just I mean, a fan to me doesn't feel equal with with the band or the artist, or but I mean, fanzines is so much about being in the kind of in the center of the scene.
I think you're really right in that there's an implied like disparity of power, you know, between, you know, the performer and the fan down here watching, and then writing about it and doing the fanzine. But I think what fanzines do is sort of expose that although that is sort of, I think, how most of us would perceive things, that's not really true, that there is no community, there is no big band without the fans there. You know, what's the point without the fans? And I think some of the best fanzines convey that. There's a fanzine from DC in the mid to late 80s called Turnaround. It was edited by a woman named Jen Thomas. And I've talked to her about this, and you know, she was like, yeah, my zine was really all about making sure people understood like the value of the community, of the fans at the shows. And if you look at issues of her zine, there are photos of bands, you know, as you see in every fanzine, performing live and, you know, doing that whole thing. But there were a lot of photos in her zine of the fans as well. So that was really interesting to me to see that. Like, you know, you're seeing people watching the bands, and it's centering them in the story. And she had said that's why she named the zine Turn Around, was the idea that like you're at the show and you're watching the band, but like turn around and like see who's around you, and like this is what's going on, like this is the community, this is what matters most. And like, of course we need the bands and we love the bands, and they deserve to be, you know, appreciated and, you know, and respected, but like don't think for a second that there's a punk scene without the fans.
I'm a punk and I say it is punk, so fuck off.